Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a video for you about this little guy right here. This is the Monterey Bay Knives Rosalinda. This is a knife that absolutely has caught me off guard, that I did not pay much attention to, and then actually my buddy Malcolm, I had one with him one day and handed it to me, and it was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And so I immediately got in touch with MBK and picked one up, and oh boy, this is good. And so I figured I would go on ahead and make a video about it. Now, this is going to be one of those where I do the disassembly to start with, and then I give you my overall impressions. Is it a full Nick Shabazz review? No, it's not. I've carried enough for it to be a full Nick Shabazz review, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. I haven't had the time or the energy to, prepare the full thing. In practice, my life has been really rough for a little while here lately. And by the way, one thing I do want to point out real quick that is sort of relevant here is that the screws are actually of slightly different depths. This screw here has, on this part of the handle, has a much shallower head, meaning the bit of the Torx bit here. I'll see if I can maybe show that off. Yeah, just barely. This has a much shallower head than this guy does. Apparently, I asked Sanford about it. Apparently, it's just so they can make it a little low profile relative to the handle here. But you want to make sure that those are kept in the proper positioning. But anyways, it's just been tough, and I'm going to be fine, right? I'm going to get through with this. No issue there. But a combination of, a really tough schedule at work combined with a number of really unpleasant personal issues going on, funerals and such, have just made things very difficult. And so I really haven't had the time to do the full review of anything, right? I've been carrying stuff every day. I'm still passionate. I'm just drowning, right? And so I've been kind of in this stage of I'm noticing, by the way, and I noticed this as I, was poking at this earlier, that this is a very strong, feels like there may be some thread locker there. So I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to grab my little handy-dandy wrench sort of situation here and see if I can give it a little more torque and see. Okay, yeah, all it needed was a little bit more torque. So, and this just allows me to do that safely a little more readily. Let's see if this comes off nicely. Yeah, okay, now it's backing out, no problem. So it must have just had a little bit of thread locker, or maybe it was over-tightened. No, looks like there was some thread locker down in there. Okay, whatever. But anyways, it's been very difficult for me to find the time for anything. It's been very difficult for me to find the time to be a human. This is not, by the way, a woe is me story, right? I'm still a very lucky man, and life is, on the whole, very good for me relative to... Well, frankly, I'm a lucky man. We'll just kind of put it that way. However, it's made it real difficult to sit down and find time to do, to work for the channel. And so, as a result, like I said, I've been carrying stuff. I've been enjoying stuff out there, and I've been seeing some stuff that's pretty cool, but I just haven't been able to do it right. I haven't been able to sit back and really dive deep in the way that, I expect of myself to do this. And this puts me at a place where it's like, okay, well, what am I doing here? By the way, the internals of this knife are not that shocking, right? We do have a titanium scale here with some internal milling. We do have a steel liner here with some also internal, well, in this case, drilling, but still, and we do have a stainless steel washer here such that we're not on titanium on one side, on screws the other side. Nice thing, little backspacer here. No big deal, but, yeah, the internals here are relatively predictable for a liner lock sort of tie knife. So, anyways, that's why I'm not saying too much about that. Just cleaning this with some rubbing alcohol. If you're curious about any of the tools I'm using, nickshabazz.com/tools has a full list of everything. But yeah, so there's this tension between, I want to sit down, I want to really take the time and write up that review and, oh my god, dive deep as I once was able to, but I also simply can't. And so there's this choice of, do I make a little content about something that's bringing me joy, or do I, do what I can, and do what I can, or do I just do nothing, right? And, I'm sure there are some people who prefer I just keep my mouth shut, but at the same time, at least from my perspective, I'm inclined to, do something, and then take it from there. I'm realizing, after I applied the lubrication, that I didn't actually clean the barrel of the pivot here, and that's generally a decent thing. But anyways, so I've been carrying this knife a lot. I've been enjoying it. I took it with me recently on a little trip, and it has served me very well. It's bigger than my normal preferences, but nevertheless, the design is good enough, and the construction and everything is just smooth and nice enough that it's been a pleasure, even though it's a little bit out of my normal range for size. I'm going ahead and using some knife pivot lube here to clean this guy up. One thing I do want to show off real quick, and I hope this is visible on camera. If we look at the very top of this, can I zoom in here? One of the things that I've had to change recently is my phone. My Galaxy Fold has had some issues, as lots of folks predicted. So anyways, they have written ZDP 189, which is the steel that this is made of, a jacketed ZDP, on the tang of the blade there, next to the Laconico. That's a flex. That's a cool little move. Maybe, oh, no, that zoomed all the way out. All right. Well, there you go. So anyways, this has been a very, very nice little companion as I have carried it, and it is much more impressive than its price, which is around $235 on their website right now, is indicating. It is really, really, really good, and it's one of the biggest surprises I've had in a little while in the knife world. So that's cool, and it is something I've very much appreciated. Monterey Bay Knives is a company that I've liked, by the way. A lot of their stuff has been great historically. This is a Ray Laconico design, and Ray is one hell of a knife designer. There is no question about that. But anyways, but they've mostly been people, the knife market here. Oh, I'm still zoomed in a little, aren't I? The knife market has been a little bit wild for the Sea Otter, which is the American-made version, and that's great. But this is one of their Chinese models, and it's kind of flown under the radar. I think people have been focused on the Otter and have completely missed out on this thing, which is pretty damn impressive in a number of different ways I'll talk about in a moment here. And so it's kind of interesting to see that effect. No, this isn't a different size. All three of the pieces of hardware here are a T8. It is worth noting that with this very shallow screw, A, you're going to need a sharp driver, and B, it can be a little bit, like it tends to kind of rotate around on top of the driver there. So this is probably going to take me a little bit of going, a little bit of doing, that is, to get in there. Oh no, I managed to get it. Hey, that's nice. To channel my inner watchmaker. It's a thing I need to learn to be better at. Even after all these years disassembling pocket knives, I still suck at it in a number of meaningful ways. But one of these days, life will calm down and I'll go to watchmaker school just for grins, he says optimistically. But that'd be really nice. Learn screwdriver sharpening and such. Yeah, it'd be cool. Anyways, I digress. So, I think we are pretty much done here. I don't know what the tension is. Will he like it? Will he not? That's the dramatic tension. Okay, maybe not. So, I think it is a little over-tightened, so I'm going to back that up just a little bit here. Oh, yeah, that's a little smoother. Is there the slightest bit of play there? No, there is not. There is some little... There we go. Sometimes you will get like a piece of dust or a fiber on the detent ball path, and it adds a little tiny moment of grit to the knife. And, yeah, and usually that'll wear out just because it's getting worn, pulverized between a detent ball and a piece of hardened steel. But yeah, that's a thing. And we are now fully reassembled, and the knife is now back together. Those two things meant literally the same thing. This is the level at which my brain is functioning, and why you probably don't want a real full review from me at the moment. What I can say, though, are some of the things I like about this knife and some of the things I dislike about this knife. The things that I really like about this, the action is out of freaking pocket. It's really, really good. right? It is a very, very nice thumb stud-based knife. Ray does a whole bunch of flippers, a whole bunch of pocket peckers, etc. This is a good old-fashioned thumb stud. It is very, very nice action. It is fall shutty in the most meaningful of ways. It is super smooth to open, super smooth to close. It is absolutely a very enjoyable action. Yet at the same time, it has plenty of detent. There's no real problem there. It's very, very well dialed in. They've done a great job of that. I also absolutely love the ergonomics of it. This is a very, very nice knife in the hand. There is a little tiny bit of ergonomic off of this guy, a little bit of dislike, but overall, this guy fits very well, and that's not usually where my hand lands, right? My finger ends up landing up here rather than down here, and this little cutout here gives you incredible lock bar access. Well, it's credible, the amount of lock bar access, but it's pretty damn solid. Right, I am a big fan of that lock bar access. They've done a nice job. And so, ergonomically speaking, combined with the rounded over clip, combined with the overall contoured handles, because these are contoured, these are not flat, this works really well in the hand. The blade is also quite nice. This is a ZDP 189 steel, and although I am not, able, both in an equipment and in a scientific competence sense, to do hardness testing, they are advertising that this is ZDP run at 66 to 67 Rockwell hardness, which is pretty freaking hard, right? And in practice, it feels credible to me because I've done a whole bunch of cutting with it, and it hasn't even yawned. Right, it is a very, very, well, of course it didn't yawn, it's a freaking knife. Anyways, I digress. It has, taken everything I've thrown at it with a grain of salt. Right, and has been very, very nice in that domain. One other thing that is kind of nice about this guy is that it is actually a jacketed blade. You're going to see that there's a color discontinuity right here, and in fact, although you really can't feel it, like even if I run a fingernail over it, there's no tactile discontinuity, but there is a discontinuity in the blade right about there. It kind of goes all the way up the knife. That is a jacketing of two steels together. Well, technically three, but it's the same on two. So you made a sandwich here, right? And the bread is a different steel. I don't actually know what that other steel is. Maybe if MBK watches, they can fill us in. But the ZDP is in the center. And it is a little bit less stainless. And by having that jacketing on the steel, you are able to be a little bit less stainless on most of the blade. Then a little bit more, a little harder at the very edge there. But it is a very, very nice little effect. It has a subtlety to it, but it's cool. And if they're able to stash a very, very high hardness steel in between some other steels that give it a little bit more strength, boy, that's nice. And it's not uncommon, right? This is kind of a Sanmai style construction. Don't sue anybody, Cold Steel. But it is absolutely a thing, and it has a lot of the details, right? Like the logo from MBK is always really well done. The Ray Laconico along the top spine of the knife is a very nice detail, and that little ZDP flex, putting that there where you laser in it, means this is incredibly sterile, right? You look at this knife, and it's just like, yeah, there it is. Not a whole lot of extra spam on there. I do kind of wish they'd gone with a less lazy lanyard hole. I'm going to be real with you here. That's a little frustrating. Like just a little hole through there. But I'm also not a lanyard person and would just generally prefer you don't even need the hole. But it kind of breaks up the cleanliness a little tiny bit. But it's not a real big deal. It is also worth noting that this little guy right here could be used as a front flipper tab. Right? I can do it. Have I done it? Not much, no. For my hand geometry, it's not a super effective front flipper tab, but it is one. And so if you are a person who badly requires the use of a front flipper, then, and I don't know what that would do, like I don't know how you would get there. Who has to hurt you such that you require the use of a front flipper? I don't know. But anyways, if you have thumb stud trauma, that is an approach that you can certainly take. But anyways, it is a very nice and a very clean look to it. I do like this swedge on there a little bit. It is nice not only for weight reduction, the balance of this guy is right about where you'd expect it to be, but it is also just attractive, and it adds a little bit of a different look relative to some of Ray's other stuff out there in the world. This is the new button lock variety of the EZC, which I'll also be taking a look at some point in time here. But this, it adds just a little bit more personality, if you will, to it, relative to some of Ray's other stuff out there. And then it does have this little area right here, which there is a sharpening choil, to be clear, but it's got this little bit of ricasso here that comes down to the edge. It's different. It's a different design touch. Do I necessarily love that more than I would prefer just going the edge all the way there? Probably not, but at the same time, it works. It differentiates it. It looks a little bit different than every other knife that Ray has made, and if there's one criticism you can level at Ray Laconico, it's that a lot of his knives end up feeling very similar to one another. This feels a little bit more of the different side, which I appreciate. Edge on this guy comes down to a very, very thin edge, right? So it's nice, thin, I'm sorry, not M390. You can tell I'm kind of used to it still. This is a ZDP 189, and it comes down to a very nice, thin edge. Actually, the tip is deceptively feels a little bit thicker there, which makes sense for a strength perspective, but it comes down to a nice thin enough edge, which is impressive given how relatively low the grind is, but they've done a really nice job there. And then, like I said, just overall in the hand, this feels way more expensive than it actually is, right? Looking at their website right now, and they're charging $235, and that's pretty ridiculous given the amount of, and in a good way, given the number of knives that right now are coming out of China. This is, by the way, made in China. They have on their website. But given the number of 375, 400, 450 knives that are of much lower quality, this is actually very impressive, right? This is a knife that has been done very well. And so I do appreciate very much that they're coming in at a price that feels actually exciting, like a bargain. This feels like a $300 or $400 knife generally does in 2023. And so as a result, you know, if this knife were $450, I'd be like, yeah, it's a really nice knife, but hey, at $230, oh my God. Like, yes, yes, indeed, right? And all the other details are right here, too. They got the little blasting on the top. It's really solid. In terms of things I dislike about it, the big one, and this comes down to my own personal bias, it's a little on the long side, right? We're coming in over, and just a hair over 3.5 inches as I'm measuring it here. Right? Which means that this is actually going to be a felony in some areas, so you got to be a little careful as to where you're carrying this kind of guy. Look up your state laws, talk to a lawyer, not a YouTuber. I am not, as I mentioned, a gigantic fan of sharpening situations like this, although, again, they put in a sharpening choil, so it's not going to be a problem for a good while. And by the time it's a problem, you're going to start interacting with the jacketing on the steel there. And so, not a huge deal there. Other things, honestly, that was the other thing. When I first got this guy, this little edge right at the very tip of this, you can see there's a little chamfer there. That had one heck of a burr on it. It was not a pleasant experience, right? And it was to the point where it could very easily scratch up in a nasty way something that you happen to have in your pocket or that you happen to walk by. What I ended up doing to deal with that is I put a piece of paper, yes, this is a piece of paper that should be on the table. This is how you can tell I'm slipping, losing it. But I took a piece of paper, I put it like this so I would protect the rest of the handle, and then I just used a sharpening stone, like a little ceramic, do I have one of those guys here? Yes, I do. Yeah, used one of these little guys right here, and I just kind of went at it and did kind of one of these, and just kind of rounded off that surface a little bit. And it was very clear that there was a burr on there, and that when I broke that burr off, it was roughly fine, right? But once I cleaned that up, that was fine. But that little edge was a little bit sharp, and one could still actually argue that the little corners around there could be dulled a little bit, so to speak. But, such is life. That's not a really particularly big deal. And, honestly, aside from that, I really don't have much to complain about here. It's a little bigger than I'd like to see. If they did one of these guys at 3 inches, that would be that'd be really cool, too. But honestly, this is just a hit out of the park, right? Ultimately, I don't, and this is part of the problem, right? I'm trying to be real with y'all, right? That this is, I wish I could sit down and spend the 4 hours I would normally spend on a full review. And I'm like, do I call it a gem or not? I don't know. Maybe I haven't thought of something. Maybe maybe I completely missed something. But honestly, I feel pretty okay with that because this is really good. Like, final conclusion, if you will. this is really good. Like, all the details are there, right? They have gone every extra mile they needed to. They've done all kinds of crazy stuff, including the little flex of the ZDP and whatnot. They've really pushed it pretty hard in terms of the construction. The blade is very nice ergonomically. It's got pretty much, it's just got it going on. It's an absolutely solid piece. And it's coming in at a price that is pretty impressive for 2023. That $235, like, holy crap, yes. I am absolutely impressed by that. So I feel like this is a gem, right? Maybe there's something that I'm not thinking. Maybe my difficulty-addled mind. Feel free to let me know if you see a problem in the comments. But by God, especially at this price, this is great. You should probably pick one of these guys up as soon as they come back in stock, because hot damn. This is really good, and it caught me way off guard. So anyways, thank you very much, MBK, for let me check one of these guys out. That's pretty awesome. And thank you for continuing to push a little bit of value, right? It has been a long period of like, oh yeah, we had a frame lock made by Bestech. It's only $430, and it's like, dude, maybe I'm bitter, maybe I'm jaded, maybe I'm old, but that was what a Shabazz was. And that ain't no Shabazz. I'm not necessarily saying this is Shabazz either, and I'm not saying that Shabazz is the bar against things are measured, but like, this is really damn good for a price that is way better than a lot of some really subpar stuff is shipping at. So in that sense, I am impressed. MBK, keep up the good work as always. Ray, keep up the good work, and everybody else, hope you're doing okay. Hope you're hanging in there, and that maybe this brings you a little bit of joy, and most of all, that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.